Hi, my name is Hannah R., and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Hannah.
My sobriety birthday is September 20th, 2022, and my home group is Came to Believe in Rocky Mount. We meet Tuesdays and Fridays. The first 3 Tuesdays, we study out of the big book from cover to cover, literally cover to cover. It takes about 2.5 years. The fourth Friday, it takes about 2.5 years. So the fourth Tuesday, we study the tradition correlating to the month and the 12 and 12. So Fridays are generally closed meetings as well, 7 to 8. So the first 3-4 Fridays, we have an open discussion meeting, and the chairperson chooses a topic from AA approved literature and asks the home group members to discuss the topic. The last Friday of the month is our only open speaker meeting. Normally we have a guest that comes from out of town. They come and to share their experience, strength, and hope with us. And then afterwards, sometimes we go to we always do. We always go to a local restaurant and we join together. Okay, to start off with, I just want to say I am a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. So please just give me a little bit of grace. I've only done this a couple of times, but I know God's going to get me through it. So we're going to do this, and I'm very thankful that you asked me to come here today, so thank you. Okay, so we're going to get started. You're like, okay, Hannah, shut up, get to the story now. All right, so I was the firstborn on my mom's side of the family. It took my mom about 7 years to have me. She was having a lot of issues having a baby. So when I was born, I was very excited to have me, because my grandma was like, this is my first grandchild. I don't want anything wrong happening with it. So my grandma and my grandpa played a huge role in my raising growing up. So by the time I was about 8 to 10 years old, my dad checked out emotionally. I mean, he was still in the house with us. He still paid the bills. We were fed. But emotionally, he was not with me, my sister, and my mother. So my grandparents, my grandma, my grandpa, and my mom did most of my raising growing up. So I grew up in a Christian school growing up, and that's how my grandparents wanted it to be. They wanted me to be raised right and be a good person. So that was how it was. We were raised very, very Southern Baptist. Fire and brimstone. You do something wrong, God's going to strike you down. You should be ashamed if you make this mistake. The whole entire community is going to be judging you. That kind of thing. I was so scared that I was baptized about the time I was 4 years old. 4 years old. I didn't even know how the world worked yet. And you know what I'm saying? You're 4 years, there's some very smart children, but when you're 4 years old, I don't think a 4-year-old quite understands what they're doing yet. Maybe some are, but I was not. I'll be honest, I was not. I was scared, and then I also, too, wanted to have a relationship with God at some point. But, I didn't know how, because like I said, I was scared. I didn't know. And it just that's how it kind of was. I claimed to be Christian for my raising growing up. Was I really a Christian? Probably not. Because like I said, I was doing it out of fear. It wasn't out of genuine, admittance. It wasn't out of genuine really doing it. I was scared. So when I was about 11 to 12 years old, my grandparents, were paying for my schooling at the time, and the particular school I was going to was getting relatively expensive, and I got transferred to a different Christian school. And honestly, it was a very unpleasant time for me. When you get around 12, 13 years old, y'all all remember your hormones are going everywhere. You're just very emotional. You don't know who you are. You're not a little kid anymore, but you're not an adult. You're still a child. But your brain's going all over the place, all these new feelings, this rebellion. Everybody hates me. This person hates me. I was actually a relatively good student. I was an AB student. I was in honors. I particularly didn't like school. I was good at it, but I didn't like it. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that my grandma and my grandpa put so much in my brain, I feel like they were putting so much pressure on me that I had to be this perfect child. I had to do everything right. I had to have A's and B's. Everything had to be good. And I had to be the best example for my little sister and my twin cousins. So it was not a pleasant time for me. And the new school I was going to was very, 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 very conservative. I mean, Mormon conservative. Dresses to your knees, at least. Skirts to your knees. You can't wear T-shirts. You have to wear blouses. A huge thing of really toxic purity culture. It was very toxic. They were comparing young girls who were sexually active to, let's say you're a bottle of Mountain Dew. Everyone starts spitting in it. Do you want to drink that Mountain Dew? I'm not joking here. That is a horrible way to compare a girl to that. And at the time, I was getting to a point where I kind of just wanted to try to really genuinely have a relationship with God. But every time I tried to ask questions, I was told to shut up and that what I was thinking was wrong and it was a sin and God hates me for it and that it's sinful for me to ask questions. And honestly, it really turned me off to the God idea. Like, I was just like, did I still believe in a God? Yeah, kinda. But, it just really turned me off to really having a genuine relationship with God. Because it's like, okay, if God's going to get mad at me for questioning him, why do I want to have a relationship with him? Like, if it's going to make me feel bad about wanting to ask things. So I started there was at one point I went through an atheist phase. There was a point I went through kind of a pagan phase. And that was probably, what most of my younger adulthood was. So I graduated high school with honors. I know a lot of y'all started drinking really, really early. That was not the case for me. I was probably about 18, 19 years old when I took my first drink. So at the time, my mom was kind of loosening up the reins on me a little bit because I was getting older. And she was just like, hey, Hannah, I don't want you going out and partying and getting drunk and getting yourself hurt with other people. I'd rather you stay home and you drink responsibly with me so I can kind of see how you're doing and you don't hurt anybody and you don't hurt yourself. So I started off just drinking, casually, socially. It wasn't alcoholically yet. There's the word yet. The first drink, I remember my first drink, it wasn't anything. A lot of you say, oh my goodness, everything just opened up and the clouds just opened up and everything was great. First drink I had, yeah, it felt good. It was nice, but it was just like, it's fine. That's okay. I know a lot of you are like, what are you talking about? Mine felt really, really good the first time. It was great. I knew I was going to do this the rest of my life. I didn't know that yet, but spoiler alert, here we go. Things didn't really start turning sour until 2020, and COVID hit. I got married. Nothing bad there. That's not a sad thing. Nothing horrible. I hope it wasn't horrible for him either. He's kind of stuck with me now. Sorry, Chris. But, it was a very pleasant event. There was nothing wrong with that, didn't contribute to, my mentality and whatnot at the time. So at that time, I was working at this shop in Rocky Mount, and they thought I was doing really well, and they decided to promote me to manager. And, excuse me. I'm going to get me some water right quick. Oh, well, thank you. So where was I at?
You were at the store. They couldn't get managed.
Okay, I was managing at the, thank you. I was managing at the shop, and there was little times, periods of spurts in COVID that they would open up again and do stuff. And he was the new owner of the shop, and he wanted to start doing like karaoke nights and game nights. And because I was the manager, he wanted me to host the events and kind of encourage people to come up and enjoy the events. So he's like, "You're going to get up and sing." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I don't think so." I am very, very nervous public speaking. I'm very, very nervous getting up and singing at this time. And I'm like, "Okay." And they were selling alcohol at these events. I said, "Okay, boss, if I have to get up and sing, I gotta drink. You gotta give me a drink, you gotta give me some social lubricant before I can get up and perform for these people." And for some reason, that particular time, it was that, things had come down from heaven. Clouds were opening up. For the first time in my life, I was like, "Whoa, this feels pretty good. I like this. It's going to fix me. This is what I've been looking for my whole life. This makes me feel good." And I would get up and I would sing and I'd get drunk and have a good time. And I was fun to be around at that time. Got another yet. It was fun to be around that time, it was just, at the current time, it was just a lot of fun, and they were having fun with me. And, the stress of the job, and, I didn't really react well to it, and I didn't have a whole lot of coping mechanisms to get me through. I was starting to get extremely stressed out, and my drinking went from on the weekends to every other day to every single day, having to get drunk every night and black out and go to sleep. I absolutely was getting to a point. It was just, I was very miserable in my life, and I hated my life, and I was miserable, I was stressed, and, at first I could, it's really bad. It's one of the biggest red flags is when you have to control your drinking. That's probably one of the biggest red flags when you start thinking about where you're going alcoholically is, that. So, it's just a red flag, and it's like I have to control my drinking, and it's like I would, it's really interesting. One of my homework members, she even shared this, and I was like, thank goodness, someone I can relate to when it comes to this particular situation. Is she said, I would drink socially and politely when I was around people, and I would try to rush to get home as soon as I could so I could get as drunk as possible until I blacked out when I got home. That was how it was. And I was, at the time I was like, maybe I have a problem, and then I'm just like, just kind of put that in the back of my mind, just put that in the back seat, whatever. I don't. It was getting to a point, I was, like I said, I was buying really, those really, really huge bottles of wine that you shared with parties and stuff. Like these huge ones. I would drink that, the whole entire bottle in one day. It was like, okay. And I would make these excuses like, red wine is good for your heart. Red wine is good for your heart, so I'm doing something healthy. And then, my husband, he found a study that came out that was saying that red wine actually wasn't good for your heart, and it actually can cause cancer. And he's like, honey, I'm so worried about you. I want you to start, limiting your drinking some. And, at the time, I was like really ticked off about that. And I was just like, okay, and I was just to the point, okay, I don't have a problem if I can just, maybe cut back a couple days. And I would cut back for a couple days, and I wouldn't drink. And then following that, it would be right back to the horses. Right back to drinking heavy, blackout drinking. And it was back to the way it was. But in a way, I was trying to prove him wrong that I didn't have a problem. But, that didn't work. That didn't work. He was constantly, telling me, honey, I'm really worried about you. I think you're drinking alcoholically. I'm so worried. Can you please stop? Or can you try to limit? And I'm just like, I don't have a problem. I'm like, shut up. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I'm fine. I said, I need this to get through the day. This is the only thing I look forward to when I get home. It is the only thing getting me through the day. It is the only thing that is fixing me. It is what holds me together at this moment. And, I was absolutely, completely broken. Just absolutely unrepairable, it felt like. I was having really bad migraines, and I'm like, I'm sick. I'm calling out of work. And I'll call out of work, sick. Yeah, I was sick in a different kind of way, sick mentally, spiritually, and, having a really bad hangover to the point where my migraine was so bad I couldn't get out of bed, and I was hugging the toilet for dear life. But yeah, calling out constantly. I was canceling plans with friends a lot, and I was saying, I'm sick, I don't feel good. I'm sorry, we're going to have to plan for another time. That type of thing. And just kind of blow everybody off. And because, I don't want anyone telling me I couldn't drink the way I wanted to drink. So I did most of my drinking by myself. So no one could tell me what I had to do. And, I kind of got a story for you. So, I was getting, how you get in that paranoia that you feel like everyone's going to catch you and you're going to get in trouble? Well, when I was doing karaoke night, there was one night, normally I would drink during the event and get drunk, but we had a DJ, and he was sober and he didn't drink alcohol. And, my sister had bought a bottle of wine for her to drink, and she was like, hey, you want some? I'm like, no, because I always think he was sober. I'm like, oh, God, if I drink, he's going to tell my boss. I'm going to get in trouble. We got the sober police over here. Wee-woo, wee-woo. Sober police over here. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh, God, I don't need him to know that I'm drinking this much or this, and that. I'm just freaking out. And also to the point where you go to the Food Lion and the cashier, and I'm about to take out my license because I look very youthful. I know I look young. I get it from my mom. Thank you, Mom. But anyway, he would get to the point, he's like, I know who you are. I know who you are. I don't need that. I don't need that. I know who you are. And I'm like, okay. And I put my license back in my wallet. I know who you are. I'm like, okay. And I would get to a point where I'd start switching stores, and my excuse was it was cheaper here or it was cheaper there. And at the time, that's what I thought it was, but looking back, I'm going, I was so embarrassed about going to the same place thinking somebody was going to catch me and that they would come and get me. So sometimes I switch it up at the ABC store, I went to the Food Lion, I went to Harris Teeter. I would switch it up. Hey, this place has a really good sale. Just switching it up. And that was probably another thing, that paranoia to that point where you're just like scared everyone's going to get you. That's not a really great place to be when you where you just absolutely feel with so much shame that someone's going to catch you and just get on you. I was getting to a point where I was getting, trigger warning for anybody if anyone's sensitive about this, but I was extremely suicidal. I was extremely suicidal. Like I said, at the time, I was saying that drink was the only thing that was getting me through the day, and at that time, that's what it felt like. It was the only thing getting me through the day. I was getting to a point where I was coming to work. I wasn't brushing my teeth. I wasn't showering. I would come in with my clothes from the day before. I was having absolute panic attacks and breaking down and couldn't get through the day, and I had to call somebody else to take my shift because I was just so absolutely miserable and sick, and I couldn't get through anything or face anything at that time. It was just getting really, really bad. I just felt like I was alone. It got to a point where I was just a really miserable person to be around, and no one really wanted to be around me. Like, I could tell they wanted to try to be nice and support me, but I knew that they weren't really liking being around me because I was just a miserable and sad person. They just didn't want to. I mean, do you want to be around Eeyore all day? I mean, okay, Eeyore is very lovable, but, do you want to have, it's me all day, I hate myself, I want to die, stuff like that. Do you want to be around somebody like that all the time? Not really. I mean, unless you're that same way, then yeah, you like to you like to feed off each other. Misery loves company. Misery loves company. I was just not a pleasant person to be around. And, sometimes it would turn into fights with my husband because I didn't like him telling me I didn't like to drink. And, I'll get a little bit fussy with him about it. I was getting to the point where I was having really bad outlashes of anger, where I was trying to train somebody, and I just started yelling at her, and not even realizing I was yelling at her. And my mom's going, "You owe her an apology. You were being really ugly to her in front of the customers." And I'm like, "No, I wasn't." And she's like, "Yeah, you were. You were being really, really irate with her." And I was like, "Really?" I'm like, "I don't think so." But, it really, really got to a point that one night I was like, you know what, this is it. I'm about to kill myself. Had all these plans. I knew how I was going to do it, when I was going to do it. And I was just like, you know what, here we go, about to write a note, here we go. And out of nowhere, just this voice comes into my head, just as clear as day. Hold on a minute. Just hold on a minute. Just hold on. And for the first time, I genuinely prayed, and I said, "Dear God, please help me. Help me. Help me, help me, help me." And I stopped what I was doing, and I went back to my bed, and I shook my husband, and I said, "I need to go to the hospital." I said, "You need to take me to the hospital." And it was very, very late, and he's like, "Honey," he said, "just give me a couple hours so I make sure I drive you safely there. Just give me a couple hours to get some sleep in so we don't, hurt anybody. And, I don't want to get on the road sleepy like this. Just give me a little bit of time to rest and I will take you." And I was able to get through that. That little bit of time, had to be God, because I don't know how I got through it, but it had to be God. I got there at the treatments. I started off at the ER. And then I got transferred over to the treatment center, Coastal Plains, got put over there. It was very interesting. If you've never been in a mental facility or a treatment center, you're wearing scrubs, you're wearing those socks with the little stickies on them. I call them my crazy socks. Although that kind of turns some people off sometimes when I say that. They're just like, "You're weird." Okay, I have a dark sense of humor, okay? And I am a little crazy. Sorry. Let's just be honest. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I am a little crazy. And that's okay. I think the best of us are. Well, anyway, I got there, and I started doing a lot of self-reflecting, because there's not much you can do while you're there. It's basically like being a baby all over again. You're coloring, you're watching light TV, you have your snacky times, you have times where you get in a line with other people and you go down to the hallway and you eat your lunch and drink your coffee, and then you come back and you get in a line and your doctor gives you your meds and you get in line, like a kid all over again. And I had a lot of time to think. And I was just like, you know what? I have a problem. And I was like, okay, I know about AA. because I had one of my childhood friends growing up, her mom was an alcoholic. And at the time, she was dating this guy at the time, and he was an AA as well. And I'm like, you know what? Let me see if there's any AA meetings in the treatment center. And so I looked on the schedule, and I decided to go to the AA meeting in the hospital. And 2 men came in, and soon to be, my home group members, and they had came to the treatment center to tell his story. And he started talking about different things and behaviors he was doing and things he was doing. And I'm like, wow, that I can relate to that a lot. Not everything, but a lot of the stuff he was saying, I'm like, wow. Like, it's like looking in a mirror. I'm like, this is exactly what I was doing. And the only thing at the time, when you're kind of drugged up like that in there, you're just kind of woozy on your new medications, and everything's kind of bright and overwhelming, and you're shaky, and you feel sick. And they were talking about the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, and it kind of sounded like the Charlie Brown thing. Wah, 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 wah. And I'm going, what does this even mean? What does these words mean? I'm like, what are they saying? How am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to do this? This sounds like absolute, and this is like no disrespect here, but it sounded like nonsense to my really meted up brain at the time. I'm going, this doesn't make any sense. How am I going to do this? And, I got the schedule for the group, and I was like, hey, once I get out, because I was getting out, I think the day or day after that, and I was like, hey, I want that group schedule. I want to go to your group. And they gave me the group schedule, and I checked out of the hospital, and the day before I went to the meeting, I screwed up again. I had some wine hidden in the fridge, and I started to drink on it a little bit, and immediately it started coming back up. And I felt sick as a dog. I did not feel good, and also I felt very guilty and ashamed. And I was like, you know what, tomorrow, we're going to get to that meeting, and we're going to get some help. And we drive up to the church parking lot, and I'm just shaking. And I'm just so nervous, and I'm like, oh God, are they going to judge me? Are they going to hate me and find me annoying? What's going on here? I'm so nervous. And, I see a couple men out there, and they're smoking their cigarettes, and they're just like, hey, are you here for the meeting? And I'm like, yeah, I am. It's like, come on inside. And I think the first one there was Paige, and he's like, come on inside, the meeting's in here. And I'm like, okay. And I'm just shaking, and out of nowhere, 3 or 4 women just pop up to me, and they're like, we're here for you, hi. And they start hugging me, and you're like, everything's gonna be okay. And I'm like, I have never had strangers ever do that to me before, and it just kind of touched my heart, and I was just like, I don't even know them, and they're already loving on me. I'm like, I'm not used to this. I didn't really have that many good friends growing up, or people who did stuff like that. And I was just like, man, this is really nice. And it kind of calmed my nerves a little bit. I was still shaky, but that's normal during that time. And, I would, went to the meeting, everything went well. And the day after the meeting, I get a call from one of my home group members, and she's like, hey, Hannah, we have this spiritual retreat we go on in Medoc Mountain, and I'd like you to come along with us. And I was like, I talked to my husband. I'm like, hey, is it okay if I go with this home group member to this spiritual retreat? He's like, yeah, honey. I said, I think you'll be good for me. He's like, yeah, honey, go ahead, go. I'm like, okay. And I called her back up, and I'm like, sure, can you please pick me up? And she's like, no problem. And get there. And honestly, I will say that I'm glad I was absolutely blessed that this particular home group member cared about me enough and provided me a trip to go, because it was honestly the foundation of where I first started learning about the steps and what the steps were, and it was starting to make a little bit of sense. It wasn't quite Charlie Brown anymore. Things were really getting serious, and I was just like, okay, this has started kind of trying to make sense here. And they were, I had a few women going, have you chose a sponsor yet? Have you chose a sponsor yet? Have you chose a sponsor yet? And I'm like, no. They're like, you need to choose. You need to get a sponsor. You need to get a sponsor. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, I don't know who to choose. And then there was this one girl around my age, and I was just like, she was really cool. And I was just like, hey, could you be my sponsor? And, at the time, I wasn't really thinking as far as distance between us kind of thing. And she lived in Raleigh. I live in Rocky Mount, and that's kind of a bit of a drive to be doing sessions with a sponsor. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible. You do what you can do. Everyone's different, but for me, that's kind of a lot of money and time to be able to go back and forth to Raleigh. So I really needed a sponsor that was in my area. And there was one night I was talking to my new sponsor on the phone, and she's like, hey, she says, this is no ill feelings towards you. She says, there's nothing wrong, between us, but, I'm about to join the Army, and, I'm going to be out of the country, and I really would like you to get a sponsor from one of your women in your home group. And I said, I was actually about to call you and tell you that as well. So we had a mutual agreement. There was no ugliness, no cattiness. It was just, I know what I needed to do. It was very respectful, nothing bad about that. She's a wonderful person, I love her. And, I had been told that I should choose a woman that, I feel like is going to help me grow, and also what I want out of my sobriety. And I was kind of observing the women in my group, and there was a particular woman that she's a very confident, I think she's a very confident person. And I like the fact that she tells it like it is, but she's not ugly about it, but she's honest with people, and no matter what you think of it, she's going to tell you like it is. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just an absolute doormat. I need someone who's going to help me not be a doormat. And, I asked her to be my sponsor, and she said yes, and she's here tonight. And, we started working on the steps. And, the one thing I will say that I really appreciate that she did is she didn't let me lollygag with the steps. We were genuine about it, but we worked through them in a consistent way, but in a decent time way. And probably the most influential steps to me were probably going through steps 4 and 5, when I had to look at my part in everything. Because at the time, I thought everything else was everybody else's fault, and it wasn't me, which is not the truth. Like I said, I was a very miserable person, and I didn't do some great things. And it gave me a chance to own up to my mistakes and to admit that I had character defects I needed to work on. And that alcoholism is not just a medical thing, it's also spiritual. It's a spiritual illness. And I didn't realize it was a spiritual illness of mind, body, spirit. And, I really started working on that. And that was probably my biggest inner work because, at one point I was extremely mad at my dad, for not being emotionally in my life. And I was able to work through that and learn, hey, he's sick too, just like me in a different type of way. And I had my mistakes and things I did wrong in this as well. And working through all the steps, but like I said, 4 and 5 were probably the most significant to me as far as getting me in the right mindset. And during this time, I finally genuinely learned to have a relationship with God. For the first time in my life, a genuine relationship with God, and it was absolutely amazing. You want to feel the power of God? Hold hands with people in a home group and say the Lord's Prayer. You can feel the Spirit in the room. I mean, it is absolutely, you just bring shivers down your spine. At least it does to me anyway. And, I actually found a church that I liked. And, I actually joined a praise and worship group at my church. And you know what I did? I sang and worshiped God without having to get drunk. I praised the Lord without having to get drunk to do it. And I really enjoy it. I enjoy praising the Lord with my praise and worship group at church. They have become some of my closest friends. And they know about my sobriety, and they are very supportive about that. And another thing, too, is during my first year of sobriety, I had some really ground-shaking things happen. Like, I was 3 months sober, and I was at my grandparents' house, and I was there when my granddad had a stroke. And my grandma and I had to call 911 for him. And it got so bad, there was a really bad blockage in his brain, and the left side of his brain wasn't working. And, we had to go to Duke every single day to drive up and see him. And during that time, I held his hand, and he couldn't talk because, that particular part of your brain that has to do with your language. But I knew he knew what I was saying. And I looked him in the eyes, and he looked at me, and I said, I am right with God now. I am 3 months sober. I said, I know that you aren't feeling it. I said, it is okay if you go home. It is okay. I will be okay. They will be okay. I will take care of them. I will take care of my grandmother. So please don't worry. I know you're not feeling good. Go ahead and go home. And at the end of the week, he passed away. And, I got through it. You know what? During that funeral, I had some really nice home group members who were there and actually went to their funeral and supported me, which was really nice. That's really amazing, the power of AA, the kind of friendships you can make here. And then 6 months later, my grandma goes right into hospice. Because, most times when you have grandparents who've been married for 50, 60, 70 years, they can't live without each other. And she started getting really sick, and my mom and I had to be 24/7 caretakers for my dying grandmother. And I did a lot of things. There's a lot that has to go with doing hospice. I'm going to just tell you right now, if you've ever had to do anything like that, death is not beautiful as far as the process of dying. It's not a beautiful thing to look at. Don't let the TV shows lie to you. But you know what? I got through it. I got through it sober. I got to be of service to my grandmother. And in a way, it was kind of making amends to her, too. That, because I had neglected our relationship when I was drinking. And, I was very resentful towards her and my grandfather. And, I got to help her sober and be useful and have a relationship with her. And I was able to get through it. No drinking. And partially, mostly sane. Got through it. Okay. It was fine. And I had a sponsor to help. I have God. I have my friends in AA that helped me get through it. And within a few months after that, my best friend died of lung cancer. And the great thing about that during that time is I was able to be of service to her as well. She wanted to get this really nice tattoo that was of her wedding bouquet with her and her husband, because she got married right before she passed away. And she's like, can you please drive me to go get it? And I said, yes, let's go get that tattoo for you. And I was able to wheel her down to the tattoo shop and let her get her last tattoo. And I was able to apologize and make amends with her about, blowing her off when I was the way I was. And I was able to get through that too, and I was able to be of service again. And it's absolutely amazing what sobriety can do, what God does for you, what you can't do for yourself. It is just absolutely amazing. And I have never had this much love and support. AA is absolutely amazing. I mean, everything has its flaws. I'm not saying anything's perfect. I'm not sitting here just painting everything as rainbow and pretty and golden and sparkly. But it has helped me have a toolbox to get through life in a healthy way and to get through things without hurting people immensely. It's absolutely amazing what AA can do if you let God and you listen to your sponsor and you work your steps and you try your best to be of service and to give back when you can, what it does for you. In the last few months, I actually got my first job sober. And you know what? I'm a reliable employee now. You don't have to worry about me calling in sick. If I do call out, I am genuinely physically sick. It's not because I'm hungover. It's not because I'm drunk. It's because I'm genuinely have a virus or something I can't spread. That's it. It's no longer that. My boss knows I'm in AA. And I've had to tell her, about meetings and stuff in my schedule and why I can't work certain hours. And she's extremely supportive of it. And she constantly checks on me, and she's just always like, hey, if you ever need to talk, if there's anything I can do to support you, please let me know. I've also learned how to set boundaries too. I've learned how to be a good employee and to be teamwork, but I've also learned how to say no and not say yes every single time someone gives me an opportunity to go to work, because sometimes you have to say no, or they run all over you and they think they can use you all the time. Do I help? Do I be used? Yes. But I also know when to say no, which is great. So thank you, Miss Rhonda. I'm not as much of a doormat anymore. Am I still working on that some? Yeah. I still got to work on my people pleasing a little bit. That's a little bit of a defect I still got to work on a little bit. But we all got to work on stuff. We're human. But I am not the same woman that I walked in the room as. I am not. Thank the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. I am not. And you know what? Like I said, I have a really supportive church. It has really healed my inner damage from past church hurts. Like I said, I have a really supportive AA friends and a really good support system in place. I was really afraid of getting sober and that I was not going to have any friends because I was going to be my complete self, without the alcohol. And it's like, is anyone going to like me after this? But you know what? I lost a few friends, but those were friends that I was doing stuff with I wasn't supposed to be doing. Drinking and doing a little bit of... But, I'm not going to say too much about that because we're in an AA meeting. We are in an AA meeting. We're not in NA. I have a really great support system in place. And you know what? I can actually get to the point in public now, it doesn't make me have a panic attack when I see alcohol anywhere. Because when I first got sober, I was calling Rhonda, I was calling Mary. I'm like, I am so sick. I said, I'm having a panic attack. I can't be around alcohol. I'm throwing up. Oh, God. I'm so scared I'm going to drink again. I'm like, I can't. But now it's like, you know what? I can be in a room now, and I can drink on my sparkling water. And other people can be drinking, and I don't go, I'm missing out on all the fun. You know what? I actually get to enjoy the fun more because I know where I'm at. I know what I'm doing. I know who I'm with. And it's great. It is great. Sobriety is actually absolutely amazing. And, it just broadens your world, and it is absolutely worth it. And one of the things I was told when I got here is that it does get better. And you know what? It does get better. It really does get better. Is everything perfect all the time? Is everything rainbows and sunshine? No. But you know what? I have a God that gets me through everything, no matter what I'm going through. I have a group that supports me and loves me. It's absolutely amazing. And that's all I got.